My name is Emilio Vasquez, 32 years old, and I never thought a presentation would nearly kill me. One minute I was explaining quarterly projections to our biggest clients. The next I was staring at hospital ceiling tiles. When doctors called my emergency contacts, my parents never showed. Instead, my sister Adriana tagged me in a social media photo captioned, "Family Day without the drama." The betrayal stung worse than the needles in my arm. But that was nothing compared to what happened when they finally needed me again. Let me know where you are watching from in the comments. Hit that subscribe button and stick around to see how I finally stood up for myself after a lifetime of one-sided loyalty. The morning before my collapse started like any other at Morrison Financial Group. I arrived at 5:30 a.m., 2 hours before anyone else, just as I had for the past 7 years. The Chicago skyline was barely visible through my corner office window, the sun not yet risen. As I reviewed the presentation one final time, everything had to be perfect. The Westbrook account represented over $30 million in potential business. My dedication to the firm was unquestionable. While other analysts maintained reasonable 40-hour work weeks, I consistently pushed 80 or more. It was a point of pride for me, though my body had been sending warning signals for months. Persistent headaches that no amount of aspirin could touch. Chest tightness I attributed to anxiety. Dizzy spells I blamed on skipping lunch. But in my family, physical weakness was never an acceptable excuse for failure. Growing up in a household with Carlos and Isabella Vasquez meant excellence was the minimum expectation. My father built his import business from nothing after immigrating from Mexico as a teenager. My mother managed their household finances with mathematical precision. Both expected their children to demonstrate the same relentless drive. The difference was that my sister Adriana could charm her way out of anything. Emilio. Why? Only 98% on this test, my father would demand, while minutes later hugging Adriana for her 89. At least she has a social life, he would say, ruffling her hair. What good is success if nobody wants to celebrate with you? These childhood memories flooded back as I sat alone in my office that morning. 3 missed calls from my mother already glowed on my phone screen. The annual family gathering at Lake Geneva was this weekend, and I had already informed them I couldn't attend due to the Westbrook presentation. The ensuing argument had been predictable. "You always do this, Emilio," my mother had scolded. "Family comes first. Your sister makes time despite her busy schedule." What my mother failed to understand was that Adriana's busy schedule as a part-time yoga instructor and aspiring influencer allowed considerably more flexibility than my position as senior financial analyst. Last month I had missed my cousin's wedding because of quarter-end reports. The month before that I had left my nephew's birthday party early to handle a client emergency. Each absence added to the growing resentment between us. My sparse apartment reflected my priorities. No photos adorned the walls. No plants softened the modern angular furniture. My kitchen contained exactly 1 plate, 1 bowl, and 1 set of utensils. The refrigerator held nothing but protein shakes and pre-made meals delivered weekly. I lived to work, and relationships had become collateral damage. The only personal item on my desk was a small trophy from my high school math competition. Not because I treasured the memory, but because it represented the moment I realized numbers made sense when people did not. Numbers never disappointed you or changed their expectations without warning. Numbers were reliable in a way my family never had been. By 9 a.m., the office hummed with activity. My assistant, Trevor, brought my usual black coffee as I finalized my notes. "The conference room is ready, and the Westbrook team just called from their hotel. They will be here at 11. Trevor informed me, eyeing the dark circles under my eyes with concern. "Did you sleep at all last night, Emilio?" Enough, I lied, having returned to my apartment around midnight, only to leave again at 4 a.m. This account could mean a partnership track for me. Marcus made that very clear. Marcus Chen, the managing director, had taken a personal interest in the Westbrook acquisition. He had handpicked me to lead the presentation, a vote of confidence that carried immense pressure. I had worked under him for 7 years, watching others be promoted ahead of me despite my superior performance. This was finally my chance to prove my value, beyond question. The warning signs intensified as morning progressed. While reviewing financial projections with my team, the spreadsheet numbers momentarily blurred. During a pre-meeting with Marcus, a wave of nausea forced me to grip the edge of the table. In the bathroom, I splashed cold water on my face and popped 2 more aspirin, ignoring the fact that I had already taken 4 that morning. "You look like hell," remarked my colleague Luke Sanders when I returned. Luke was the closest thing I had to a friend at the firm, though our relationship rarely extended beyond occasional drinks after particularly successful deals. "Seriously, Emilio, are you sure you are up for this?" "I am fine," I insisted, straightening my tie and squaring my shoulders. "Just need to get through the next few hours." By 10:45 a.m., the Westbrook team began arriving. 6 executives in tailored suits, each carrying identical leather portfolios embossed with the Westbrook logo. I greeted them with practiced confidence, shaking hands firmly despite the cold sweat breaking out across my forehead. My phone vibrated in my pocket as we took our seats around the conference table. A glance revealed another call from my father. I silenced it without hesitation. Nothing could distract me now, not even family obligations. The presentation I had spent weeks perfecting was about to begin, and with it the next chapter of my career. If only I had known it would also begin the next chapter of my life in ways I never could have anticipated. 15 minutes into my presentation, the first serious warning came. Mid-sentence about projected revenue streams, the conference room tilted sideways momentarily. I paused, took a sip of water, and continued. The Westbrook CEO, Richard Westbrook himself, was watching me with hawk-like intensity. I could not afford any signs of weakness. As you can see from these figures, I continued advancing to the next slide. Our proposed investment strategy would yield an estimated 12% increase in the first quarter alone, with compound growth reaching potentially 15.7% by year-end. The words felt thick in my mouth. The temperature in the room seemed to rise dramatically, though no one else appeared affected. Marcus shot me a questioning look from the end of the table as I loosened my tie slightly. "Mr. Vasquez, are you all right?" asked Catherine Myers, Westbrook's chief financial officer. Her voice sounded distant, as if coming through water. "Yes, perfectly fine," I managed, though the room had begun to spin. Just warm in here. Where was I? The projected growth. The presentation slides blurred before my eyes. My heart pounded erratically in my chest, a painful staccato that stole my breath. A high-pitched ringing filled my ears, drowning out the concerned murmurs around the table. Emilio Marcus was standing now, his expression shifting from annoyance to alarm. I opened my mouth to respond, but no words came. Instead, I felt my knees buckle beneath me. The last thing I remember was the cold marble floor rushing up to meet me, and the distant sound of voices shouting for someone to call an ambulance. When consciousness returned, it arrived in fragments. Beeping machines. The antiseptic smell of hospital sheets. The pinch of an IV needle in my arm. My eyes fluttered open to a stark white ceiling and the concerned face of a doctor I had never seen before. "Welcome back, Mr. Vasquez," she said, checking something on the monitor beside my bed. Her ID badge read Dr. Sarah Mitchell. "You gave everyone quite a scare." My throat felt like sandpaper. "What happened?" I croaked. "You suffered what appears to be stress-induced cardiomyopathy, sometimes called broken heart syndrome," Dr. Mitchell explained, helping me sip water through a straw. "Your heart was essentially stunned by extreme stress, mimicking a heart attack. We are running more tests, but the initial indicators suggest severe exhaustion, combined with dangerously high blood pressure and cortisol levels." I tried to sit up, immediately regretting the attempt as dizziness washed over me. The presentation, I gasped. "What time is it I need to call Marcus?" Dr. Mitchell gently pressed me back against the pillows. "It is 7:30 p.m., and you are not calling anyone except to let them know you will be our guest for at least the next 48 hours. Your body has given you a serious warning, Mr. Vasquez. Ignore it again at your peril." Reality began settling in as my foggy brain cleared. I had collapsed in front of the Westbrook executives. Years of work building my reputation, countless nights, sacrificing sleep, all potentially undone in an instant of physical weakness. "My phone," I insisted. "I need my phone." A nurse named Jennifer appeared beside the bed, holding my personal effects in a clear plastic bag. "Your things are all here," she said kindly. "But the doctor recommends rest right now, not work calls." "Did anyone come for me?" I asked, suddenly aware of the empty room save for medical staff. "Did you call my emergency contacts?" Jennifer and Dr. Mitchell exchanged a quick glance that told me everything I needed to know. "We called the numbers listed in your phone several times," Jennifer confirmed. "Your parents, Carlos and Isabella Vasquez, correct? We left messages explaining the situation. No one has arrived yet, but it has only been a few hours." I nodded, unsurprised, yet still disappointed. My collapse had likely occurred during their drive to Lake Geneva for the family weekend. They probably had not even checked their messages yet. At least that was the explanation I offered myself. "Try my sister," I suggested. "Adriana Vasquez. She might be easier to reach." As Jennifer noted the information, my phone buzzed within the plastic bag. Hope flared, briefly extinguished as quickly when I saw it was only a text from Trevor asking if he should reschedule the Westbrook presentation. No messages from family members. No missed calls from concerned parents or sister. Just work wondering when I would return to my duties. Hours passed in a haze of medical tests, blood draws, and vital sign checks. The hospital room grew darker as evening deepened into night. Each time the door opened, I looked up expectantly, only to see another nurse or technician. Never the faces of my family. By midnight, I had given up the pretense of expecting visitors. I scrolled through emails, one-handed, attempting to assess the damage to the Westbrook deal. An email from Marcus was surprisingly supportive, assuring me that the clients understood and the presentation would be rescheduled when I recovered. Reading between the lines, I understood this consideration had an expiration date. Corporate sympathy was always a limited resource. Out of habit, I opened social media, something I rarely bothered with given my schedule. The algorithm, recognizing my infrequent usage, prioritized posts from family members it assumed would interest me most. That was how I saw it. The posts that confirmed what I had always suspected but never wanted to believe. A photo of my entire extended family gathered around the massive stone fireplace at the Lake Geneva house. My parents front and center, arms around each other, looking relaxed and happy. My sister Adriana beside them, her perfectly practiced smile gleaming. Uncles, aunts, cousins, even my 5-year-old nephew holding a marshmallow on a roasting stick. Ricin. Everyone was there. Everyone except me. The caption beneath the photo, posted by Adriana just 30 minutes earlier, read, "Family day without the drama. Sometimes the missing piece brings the most peace. Blessed family first." I stared at the screen until it blurred, though, whether from fatigue or unshed tears I could not say. They had received the calls about my hospitalization. They had made a conscious choice not only to continue their plans without me, but to celebrate my absence. As the machines beeped steadily beside me, monitoring the heart that had temporarily given out under years of strain, I turned off the phone and placed it on the bedside table. Nurse Jennifer appeared with medication, her expression softening when she saw my face. "No visitors yet?" she asked gently. "No," I replied, managing a smile that felt foreign on my face. "But it is fine. They are busy with a family gathering. We are short-staffed tonight, but I will be checking on you frequently," Jennifer promised, adjusting my IV line. "You are not alone." But I was alone. More profoundly than perhaps I had ever been before. And the worst part was realizing that nothing about this situation was new. The only difference was that I could no longer pretend not to see the truth that had been there all along. By morning, my condition had not improved as quickly as the doctors had hoped. Dr. Mitchell frowned at my test results, explaining that my body was showing signs of longer-term damage from sustained stress. "Your heart needs time to recover," she explained, reviewing the echocardiogram results. "The left ventricle shows significant weakness. Stress cardiomyopathy can resolve quickly in some patients, but given your overall condition, we are looking at a longer hospitalization." "How long?" I asked, already calculating the projects that would need reassigning the clients who would need placating. "At least a week, possibly longer," Dr. Mitchell replied firmly. "And when you do leave, significant lifestyle changes will be necessary. Your current work habits are quite literally killing you, Mr. Vasquez." The news hit harder than expected. A week away from the office might as well be a career death sentence in the competitive environment of high finance. Colleagues would circle my accounts like sharks sensing blood in the water. The partnership track I had sacrificed everything for would likely vanish. My phone remained ominously silent through the morning. No calls from my parents. No messages from Adriana. I had sent a brief text to my mother. In hospital. Doctors say, heart problem. From stress. We'll be here at least a week. The message showed as delivered but not read. Around noon, the first visitors arrived. Trevor appeared with a leather portfolio containing paperwork that absolutely needed your signature, so sorry to bother you. Behind him, Luke Sanders brought a plant and an awkward smile. The office is in shock, Luke told me after Trevor departed. Nobody has ever seen someone actually work themselves into the hospital before. You are setting new standards of dedication. His attempt at humor fell flat, but I appreciated the effort. Luke glanced around the sterile room with its beeping monitors and tangled IV lines. Have your folks been by? He asked innocently. They are out of town, I replied the lie, coming easily after years of making excuses for their absence in my life. At our lake house in Wisconsin. Luke nodded, uncomfortable with the growing silence. Well, Marcus sent his regards. The Westbrook people were actually impressed with how you handled yourself before. You know. He pantomimed, collapsing. Catherine Myers said anyone who works hard enough to pass out during a presentation clearly takes their responsibilities seriously. Great, I muttered. My professional breakdown is now a selling point. We chatted about office politics for a few more minutes before Luke checked his watch and made noises about getting back for a meeting. As he left, the facade of normalcy departed with him, leaving me alone with thoughts I had been avoiding for years. Why was I killing myself for a company that viewed my health crisis as a marketing opportunity? Why did I continue to prioritize family who apparently celebrated my absence? What was I trying to prove? And to whom? The afternoon brought more medical tests, a consultation with a cardiologist, and a visit from a hospital nutritionist, horrified by my description of my typical diet. By evening, I had accumulated a comprehensive picture of just how badly I had neglected my health in pursuit of professional success and familial approval. We have added a counseling session with Dr. Reynolds tomorrow. Nurse Jennifer informed me while changing my IV bag. Standard procedure for stress-induced cardiac events. I started to protest, but lacked the energy. Instead, I reached again for my phone, scrolling through more social media updates from the lake house. My cousin Miguel sharing photos of the boat outing. My Aunt Teresa posting about the perfect family dinner. My father, who rarely used social media, appearing in a video raising a toast to having everyone who matters here together. The hospital psychologist Dr. Reynolds arrived the following morning, a thoughtful woman with silver-rimmed glasses and a notepad she rarely wrote on. Tell me about your support system, Emilio, she suggested after introducing herself. I hesitated, unsure how to explain that my support system consisted primarily of a coffee maker and an online meal delivery service. I am close with my family. I began automatically the programmed response I had given throughout my life. Are they here supporting you now? She asked gently. The question hung in the air between us. For the first time, I answered honestly. Number. They are at our lake house having a family weekend. My sister posted that it is better without me there. Less drama, apparently. Dr. Reynolds nodded without judgment. And why do you think they see you as a source of drama? Because I work too much. Miss family events. Prioritize my career. I gestured to the hospital room. Ironically, I might not be here if I had taken more time for personal relationships and stress management. Tell me about your childhood, Dr. Reynolds suggested, changing direction. Were you always the responsible one? The question opened floodgates I had not realized were straining. Words poured out about being the academic achiever, the sensible child, the one who helped with family finances from his first paper route at age 11. I described Adriana's freedom from these expectations, her ability to charm our parents into forgiveness for any transgression, while I was held to impossible standards. It sounds like you established a pattern early on, Dr. Reynolds observed. The reliable problem solver, the one who sacrifices his needs for others. Have you ever wondered what would happen if you stopped playing that role? The question troubled me deeply. Who would I be, if not the responsible son, the dedicated employee, the person others could always count on? If I removed those identifiers, what remained of Emilio Vasquez? I need to reassess some priorities, I admitted finally. But changing family dynamics that have existed for decades is not simple. No, Dr. Reynolds agreed, but continuing patterns that have landed you in cardiac care at 32 is not sustainable either. As our session ended, she left me with resources on setting boundaries and recognizing unhealthy relationship patterns. I spent the afternoon reading them between naps and blood pressure checks, interrupted occasionally by work emails I felt compelled to answer despite medical advice. On the third day of my hospitalization, I met Michael, a patient from the room across the hall, who was recovering from bypass surgery. 65 and recently retired, Michael became an unexpected source of wisdom during my extended stay. Worked 40 years in sales, he told me during a supervised walk around the cardiac floor. Missed my kids growing up. Missed my wife falling out of love with me. All for a gold watch and a pension that barely covers my medical bills. No regrets, I asked, genuinely curious. Nothing but regrets. Michael laughed, though there was pain behind it. My daughter barely knows me. My son calls twice a year. The company replaced me within a week of my retirement party. If I had it to do over. He paused, adjusting his hospital gown. Well, I would be there for the school plays and birthday parties, not just the tuition payments. His words stayed with me that night, as I stared at the ceiling, listening to the rhythmic beeping that measured each beat of my damaged heart. 4 days had passed since my collapse. 4 days without a single response from my family despite multiple messages sent. I had built my entire identity around being needed, being essential, being the responsible one who could be counted on when it mattered. Now, lying in a hospital bed after a serious health crisis, I was forced to confront the possibility that I was not needed at all. That my family functioned perfectly well, perhaps even better without me. The realization should have been devastating. Instead, it felt strangely liberating. If they did not need me, perhaps I was free to prioritize my own needs for once. If my value to them was solely as a problem solver and financial resource, perhaps it was time to reconsider the relationship entirely. I fell asleep that night with a sense of clarity I had not experienced in years. Whatever happened next, I would approach it with new eyes and stronger boundaries. I could not have known that my resolve would be tested sooner, and more dramatically than I could have imagined. On the 5th morning of my hospitalization, I awoke to find my phone dead. In my weakened state, I had forgotten to charge it overnight. Nurse Jennifer, now a familiar presence, brought me a charger borrowed from the nurse's station. "You have got a lot of catching up to do," she commented, as the phone screen lit up with notification after notification. "Somebody finally realized you are here." As the notifications continued to stream in, my stomach tightened with apprehension. 74 missed calls, 49 text messages, 23 voicemails, all from my family, all within the past 12 hours. The most recent text, sent just minutes earlier from my father, read simply, "We need you. Answer immediately." No inquiry about my health. No mention of my hospitalization. Just urgent demand, the familiar pattern, reasserting itself even in crisis. I hesitated, finger hovering over the callback button as conflicting emotions warred within me. Anger at their silence during my health crisis. Lingering obligation ingrained through decades of being the family fixer. Curiosity about what could possibly warrant such urgent contact. And yes, a small, shameful flicker of vindication that they finally realized they needed me after all. The first voicemail was from my mother, her voice uncharacteristically tremulous. "Emilio, call us as soon as you get this. It is an emergency. Your father, the business. Please, we need you." The second, from my father, contained none of his usual commanding tone. Instead, he sounded defeated. "Son, I know we have not been there for you lately. I just saw your messages about the hospital. We will explain everything when you call back. Please, Emilio. The business is in trouble. Serious trouble." Subsequent messages revealed fragments of the crisis. The import business my father had built over 30 years was facing bankruptcy. A major shipment had been seized at customs. Suppliers were demanding immediate payment. The company accounts were frozen pending investigation. Against my better judgment, I called my father's number. He answered on the first ring. "Emilio, thank God," he breathed. "We have been trying to reach you for hours." "I am in the hospital," I reminded him flatly. "As you would know if you had checked your messages 5 days ago when the doctors called you." A pause. "Yes, your mother mentioned something about that. A stress thing. Are you being released soon?" "We need you in Milwaukee immediately. The business lawyers say we need someone with financial expertise to help navigate this situation, and your sister said you would know what to do." The casual dismissal of my health crisis ignited something in me. "I had a cardiac event, Dad. I collapsed during a presentation. The doctors say I will be here at least another week." "A week? Impossible. We need you now. Can you check yourself out? Work remotely from here. Something." Before I could respond, the hospital room door opened and Adriana walked in. My sister, impeccably dressed as always, carrying a small gift bag that looked hastily assembled. Her expression flickered between concern and impatience. "Dad, I found him. He is here," she said into her own phone before ending the call and focusing on me. "You look terrible." "Cardiac patients rarely look their best," I replied, setting down my phone. "Nice of you to finally visit. Enjoy the family weekend without the drama." Her cheeks flushed at the reference to her social media post. That was nothing personal. You know how stressful family gatherings are when you are there constantly checking work emails and making everyone feel guilty for taking time off. "I was in the hospital, Adriana. The doctors called everyone multiple times." She had the grace to look momentarily ashamed. "We thought it was just exhaustion or something minor. You always work too hard. How were we supposed to know it was serious? You could have called back to find out I pointed out, or visited, or sent a text. Any acknowledgement at all would have been nice." Adriana shifted uncomfortably before changing tactics. "Look, what is done is done. We need to focus on the current crisis. Dad is in serious trouble, Emilio. The business might not survive and they could lose everything. The house, retirement savings, everything. They need your financial expertise. And suddenly I am part of the family again," I observed. "Convenient timing." "Do not be petty," she snapped. "This is not about you. This is about our parents potentially losing everything they have worked for. Are you really going to hold a grudge about a missed hospital visit when their entire future is at stake?" Her words struck the familiar chord of guilt that had motivated most of my life choices. Family obligation, responsibility, putting others first. The weight of it felt suddenly suffocating in the small hospital room, with its beeping reminders of my own mortality. "What happened?" I asked, finally professional instincts engaging despite my resentment. Adriana explained in a rush. Dad had been cutting corners on import regulations for years. A disgruntled employee had tipped off authorities. A shipment worth millions was currently impounded with fines accumulating daily. The business accounts were frozen pending investigation. They needed someone who understood financial restructuring and crisis management. "They need you," she concluded. "Only you can fix this." The conversation was interrupted by Nurse Jennifer arriving to check my vitals. She raised an eyebrow at Adriana, but said nothing as she recorded my elevated blood pressure. "Everything okay?" she asked me quietly. "Family emergency," I explained tersely. "Could you give us a minute?" Once Jennifer had left, Adriana leaned in closer. "So you will help, right? You can direct us from here if needed. Dad says they need immediate action, or everything is lost." I studied my sister's face, seeing the calculation behind her concern. "Were you going to visit me at all? If this had not happened? Be honest." She hesitated too long. "Of course, eventually. Once the weekend was over. The family day without drama." I quoted her caption back to her. "That is how you all see me, as dramatic for working to support myself, instead of living off our parents like you still do at 29. "That is not fair," she protested. I contribute to the family in other ways. Not everyone measures value with a paycheck. And I contribute by being the emergency financial advisor when things fall apart, I observed, but not valuable enough to check on when hospitalized. My phone rang again. My mother this time. Adriana shot me an imploring look. Please, Emilio. They are desperate. We can work through the other stuff later. I answered the call listening as my mother alternated between tearful apologies for not visiting and frantic explanations of their financial predicament. Through her sobs, I pieced together that this crisis had not appeared overnight. My father had been hiding financial troubles for years, taking increasingly desperate measures to keep the business afloat. We did not want to worry you, she explained. You were always so busy with your career. Your father was sure he could handle it. Until he could not, I finished for her. And now you need me to clean up the mess. Family helps family. She insisted, the implicit guilt trip as effective as ever. You have always been the smart one. The one we could count on. As I listened to her familiar manipulation tactics, something shifted inside me. Dr. Reynolds's question echoed in my mind. What would happen if I stopped playing the role assigned to me since childhood? Nurse Jennifer returned this time with Dr. Mitchell. I need to check my patient now, the doctor said firmly to Adriana. And his blood pressure is concerning me. I think this visit needs to conclude. As Adriana gathered her purse, shooting me a meaningful look, I made a decision that would forever alter my relationship with my family. I will call you back tomorrow, I told my mother. Before ending the call, I need to focus on my health right now. Her protests were cut short as I pressed the end button, handing my phone to Dr. Mitchell. Could you keep this at the nurse's station for the night? I think I need a break from family emergencies. As Adriana left and the medical staff checked my vital signs, I closed my eyes, the weight of 32 years of obligation pressing against my chest alongside the physical pain of my damaged heart. For perhaps the first time in my adult life, I was choosing my own well-being over family demands. The revelation was both terrifying and exhilarating. That night brought fitful sleep interrupted by anxiety dreams. In one, I stood in an empty office while Marcus cleared out my desk, explaining that reliability was a minimum requirement. In another, I watched from a distance as my family home was auctioned off, my parents and sister standing on the lawn with suitcases, while I remained frozen, unable to move toward them. Morning brought a session with Dr. Reynolds, who listened attentively as I recounted the previous day's family drama. This is a significant crossroads, she observed after I finished. A chance to establish new patterns or reinforce old ones. What are you feeling right now? The question seemed simple but required deep reflection. Conflicted, I admitted finally. Part of me wants to rescue them because that is what I have always done. But another part feels resentful. They ignored me during a health crisis, then showed up only when they needed something. That resentment is valid, Dr. Reynolds noted. It is highlighting a pattern of one-sided consideration in your relationships. But they might lose everything, I countered. The dutiful son's voice still strong within me. Possibly, she acknowledged. Actions have consequences, including your father's business decisions and your family's choices about prioritizing relationships. The question is not whether you care about their well-being, but whether you can help without sacrificing your own recovery and without enabling harmful patterns. The conversation continued for an hour, exploring the complex web of family dynamics that had shaped my life choices. We discussed boundaries, the difference between helping and rescuing, and the possibility of supporting my family while still protecting my health and self-respect. Consider this, Dr. Reynolds suggested as our session ended. Helping them navigate this crisis does not mean you must do so on their terms or according to their timeline. You can establish conditions that respect your needs as well. After she left, I requested my phone from the nurse's station. There were more missed calls and increasingly desperate messages, but I set them aside temporarily. Instead, I called Luke at the office. "Hey, hospital escapee," he answered cheerfully. "Planning your triumphant return." "Not exactly," I replied. "I need a favor. Can you bring me my laptop and the files on the Reynolds restructuring we did last year? The ones dealing with temporary asset freezes and regulatory compliance." Luke arrived that afternoon with the requested materials and additional updates from the office. Marcus had reassigned the Westbrook account temporarily, but left the door open for my return. Most clients had expressed concern about my health rather than frustration about delayed projects. "People actually like you," Luke observed, seeming surprised. Who knew? Once he departed, I spent hours researching my father's situation based on the fragmented information from my family's messages. What emerged was a picture of long-term financial mismanagement, combined with increasingly desperate attempts to circumvent import regulations. The situation was serious, but not necessarily fatal if handled correctly. Michael, my hallway neighbor recovering from bypass surgery, wheeled himself into my room during a supervised exercise period. "Working from your deathbed?" he asked, eyeing the laptop balanced on my hospital tray. "Some habits die hard." "Family crisis," I explained. "My father's business is in trouble." Michael nodded knowingly. "Let me guess. They need your expertise, but did not bother to check on you until they needed something." I looked up, startled by his accuracy. "How did you know?" "Been there," he sighed. "After my first heart attack 10 years ago, my brother never visited once. Then his construction company faced bankruptcy, and suddenly I was his favorite sibling again. Loaned him $50,000 I never saw again." "What would you do differently?" I asked. "Help with strings attached," Michael replied without hesitation. "Set terms. Protect yourself. Family is important, but enabling bad behavior is not a kindness to anyone." His advice resonated with Dr. Reynolds's suggestions. As Michael wheeled himself back to his room, I began drafting a plan that would address my family's crisis while establishing new boundaries for our relationship moving forward. By evening, I had outlined a comprehensive approach to my father's business troubles. It would require legal representation. I had connections to financial restructuring I could oversee remotely, and complete transparency from my father about past decisions and current circumstances. Most importantly, it would require my parents to attend family counseling with me once the immediate crisis passed. My conditions were non-negotiable. I would help, but on my terms, not theirs. And I would do so without compromising my recovery or returning to the dysfunctional patterns that had contributed to my collapse in the first place. When I finally called my father back, his relief quickly turned to resistance as I outlined my conditions. "Counseling, legal oversight, Emilio. We do not have time for all that," he protested. "We need immediate action before we lose everything." "These are my terms," I replied calmly. "I cannot leave the hospital, and even if I could, my doctor has forbidden work for at least 2 more weeks. I can help remotely with the assistance of colleagues, but only if you agree to complete transparency and the other conditions I have outlined. Your mother and I have always supported you," he argued, voice rising. "We paid for your education, gave you every advantage. And now when we need your help, you set conditions." The old guilt tactics washed over me without finding purchase. "Yes, I am setting conditions. Because I care about sustainable solutions, not quick fixes that allow harmful patterns to continue. I want to help you save the business, Dad, but not at the cost of my health or self-respect." The silence that followed was profound. When my father spoke again, his voice had lost its demanding edge. "I will talk to your mother. Call you back tomorrow." As I set down the phone, I realized my heart was beating steadily. My breathing even. For the first time in days, perhaps years, I felt centered in my own truth rather than reactive to others' expectations. Whatever my parents decided, I had found a path forward that honored both my family ties and my own well-being. It was a delicate balance, but one I was finally ready to attempt. The following morning brought an unexpected development. My entire family arrived at the hospital together. My father unusually subdued in a wrinkled button-down shirt. My mother, eyes red rimmed from crying. Adriana defensive but quiet. They filed into my room like petitioners approaching a throne, a dramatic reversal of our usual family hierarchy. "We read your email," my father began without preamble. "The one with your conditions and the preliminary plan for the business." I had sent a detailed outline the previous evening after consulting with a lawyer friend, and I prompted keeping my expression neutral, despite the anxiety fluttering beneath my hospital gown. Some of it makes sense, he admitted grudgingly. The legal approach to unfreezing certain accounts. The negotiation strategy with customs. Your contacts could be very helpful. But I could hear the unspoken objection in his tone. But this family counseling requirement is unnecessary, my mother interjected. We are having a financial crisis, Emilio, not a family crisis. I could not help the short laugh that escaped me. Look around, Mom. I am in a cardiac unit at 32 because of stress, and none of you visited until you needed financial help. We absolutely have a family crisis. Adriana shifted uncomfortably. You are being dramatic again. We would have visited eventually. After your post about Family Day being better without the drama, I challenged, finally voicing the hurt her social media caption had caused. That was cruel, Adriana. I was lying here wondering if I would ever work again, if my career was over, if my health would recover, and you were celebrating my absence. Her composure cracked slightly. That was not about you specifically. It was about the constant pressure we all feel around you. The way you make us feel inadequate with your success and your judgments. Judgments, I echoed, genuinely surprised. You think I do not know what you think of my career choices? Adriana continued gaining momentum. The eye rolls when I talk about my yoga teaching. The dismissive comments about social media being a waste of time. Not everyone wants to work 80 hours a week in a soulless corporation, Emilio. Her words struck a nerve, revealing a perspective I had never considered. In my mind, I had always been the family disappointment, the one whose achievements went unnoticed while Adriana received praise for minimal effort. The idea that she felt judged by me was startling. And you think we did not want to visit my mother? Added, dabbing at her eyes. We were terrified. The doctors said stress-induced heart problem. We knew exactly why. Your constant overworking, your refusal to take time off, your criticism of our choices while driving yourself into the ground. What were we supposed to say? That we told you so. You could have shown up, I said quietly. Just been here. That would have been enough. An uncomfortable silence filled the room, broken only by the steady beeping of my heart monitor. My father stared out the window, jaw working as he processed emotions he rarely expressed. The business troubles did not happen overnight, he admitted finally. I have been cutting corners for years, taking risks. When your mother and I received the calls about your hospitalization, we had just learned about the customs seizure. We were in crisis mode ourselves. So you chose to ignore my crisis and focus on yours, I observed, without accusation, simply stating facts. We made a mistake, my mother conceded, reaching for my hand across the hospital bed. A terrible mistake. When we realized how serious your condition was, we were ashamed. It was easier to continue the family weekend than admit we had failed you. And then we needed your help, my father added, turning back from the window. The irony is not lost on me, son. We ignored you in your time of need, then expected you to drop everything for ours. The frankness of their admission surprised me. For the first time in memory, my parents were acknowledging a failure without deflection or excuse. The counseling is non-negotiable, I said after a moment. Not as punishment, but because we need it. All of us. This dynamic has been hurting everyone in different ways. Even if we agree, Adriana interjected, how does this solve the immediate business crisis? The accounts are still frozen. Suppliers are still demanding payment. The legal issues remain. I have already made some calls, I explained, gesturing to my laptop. My firm has a relationship with Robertson Legal Group specialists in import regulatory compliance. They can file emergency motions to release operating funds while the investigation continues. I have drafted a restructuring plan that would satisfy immediate creditors while negotiating terms with others. My father looked skeptical. All this from a hospital bed. Turns out a lifetime of overworking has some benefits, I replied with a small smile. I know people who can help. But my involvement comes with the conditions I outlined. Complete transparency about the business. No more hiding financial troubles, regular updates, and family counseling once the immediate crisis is stabilized. My parents exchanged glances, having one of those silent conversations long married couples perfect. My mother nodded slightly, and my father's shoulders relaxed in acquiescence. "All right," he agreed finally. "Your terms. But you have to understand something too, Emilio. This has to be a two-way street. If we are going to be more considerate of your needs, you need to be more present in the family, not just when there is a crisis." It was a fair point, one that Dr. Reynolds had also raised in our sessions. My absence from family life had not been solely due to their treatment of me. My own choices to prioritize work above all else had contributed to the distance between us. I am making changes, I promised. This cardiac event was a wake-up call in more ways than one. I cannot continue working the way I have been. And I do want a better relationship with all of you. That is why I am insisting on the counseling. Not to place blame, but to find a healthier way forward. Adriana, who had been unusually quiet, spoke up hesitantly. "For what it is worth, I am sorry about that social media post. It was thoughtless and mean. I was angry that you always miss family events, but that does not excuse celebrating while you were in the hospital." Her apology, perhaps the first genuine one she had ever offered me, touched something deep within. "Thank you," I said simply. Dr. Mitchell chose that moment to enter, stopping short at the sight of my family gathered around the bed. "Quite a full house today," she observed, checking my monitors. "How are we feeling with all these visitors?" Surprisingly, my vitals were stable despite the emotional conversation. "Better than expected," I admitted. "Well, keep it calm," she advised. "Family support is important for recovery, but not if it raises your blood pressure." As she left, my father cleared his throat. "We should let you rest. I will call Robertson Legal Group this afternoon and give them permission to coordinate with you. And I will research family therapists," my mother added, surprising me with her immediate acceptance of that condition. They gathered their things, preparing to leave. At the door, my father paused, turning back with an expression I had rarely seen on his face. Vulnerability. "We do need you, Emilio," he said quietly. "Not just for this crisis. We have always needed you, even when we failed to show it properly." As they departed, I leaned back against the pillows, emotionally drained but strangely peaceful. The conversation had been difficult, painful at times, but also the most honest exchange our family had shared in years. It was a beginning, not an end. A first step toward healing relationships that had been dysfunctional for decades. Whether the business could be saved remained to be seen. Whether our family could be transformed was an even more complex question. But for the first time, I felt hopeful about both possibilities. 6 months after my collapse, I sat in the sunlit courtyard of a small cafe near my new apartment. My cardiologist appointment that morning had brought encouraging news. My heart function had improved significantly. "Remarkable recovery," she had noted, reviewing my test results. "Whatever changes you have made, keep making them." Those changes had been substantial and often challenging. I had resigned from Morrison Financial Group, declining Marcus's counteroffer of partnership with its attendant expectations of 80-hour work weeks and constant availability. Instead, I had accepted a position at a smaller firm with strict work-life balance policies, including mandatory vacation time and prohibitions against answering emails after 7 p.m. My new apartment was half the size of my previous one, but felt twice as comfortable, with actual furniture meant for relaxation walls, adorned with photographs and even 2 thriving houseplants. Simple changes that represented a fundamental shift in priorities. Across the table sat my father, reviewing quarterly projections for the restructured family business. The custom seizure had ultimately resulted in substantial fines, but no criminal charges, thanks to the legal team's skillful navigation. The business had survived, though, in a smaller, more carefully regulated form. "These numbers look sustainable," I observed, highlighting a section of the report. "Not the growth you were used to, but solid." My father nodded, the past months having softened some of his hard edges. "Sustainable is good. Ethical is better. I sleep at night now." That was another change. Our conversations now included actual exchanges rather than reports and demands. 6 months of bi-weekly family therapy sessions with Dr. Reynolds had created space for new patterns of communication, though old habits still occasionally resurfaced. "Your mother wants to know if you are coming for Sunday dinner," he mentioned, attempting casualness, though I could hear the underlying concern about my answer. I will be there, I confirmed, already on my calendar. The relief in his eyes spoke volumes about how our relationship had evolved. I now attended family gatherings regularly, but not at the expense of my health or personal boundaries. I had missed the previous month's dinner due to a conference, and while disappointed, my parents had accepted my absence without guilt trips or accusations. Adriana and I had developed a tentative friendship built on small connections rather than grand gestures. She had started a successful wellness Instagram account, and I had surprised her by asking genuine questions about her social media strategy rather than dismissing it as trivial. In turn, she had stopped portraying me as the family villain in her online narratives. She is dating someone new, my father mentioned, some yoga instructor with a man bun. Your mother is already planning the wedding, of course. I smiled at his eye roll, so similar to my own expressions. I will meet him on Sunday. As we finished our coffee, my father hesitated before speaking again. The cardiologist gave good news. Yes, I confirmed. Heart function almost normal. No lasting damage, apparently. He nodded, eyes fixed on his empty cup. When we got that call from the hospital, and then ignored it, I have never been more ashamed of anything in my life. It was not the first time he had expressed this regret, but it was perhaps the most unguarded. Family therapy had revealed how my parents' own upbringings had shaped their responses to vulnerability, how my father's fear of inadequacy had driven both his business risks and his emotional distance. We are past that, I assured him. All of us making better choices now. Because you forced us to, he acknowledged. Your conditions for helping with the business crisis. That was brave. The compliment warmed me more than I had expected. Not brave. Just necessary. For all of us. As we parted outside the cafe, my father surprised me with a quick embrace. Such displays of affection had once been rare between us, but were becoming more natural with practice. Returning to my apartment, I reflected on the profound shift in my understanding of family obligation. For most of my life, I had equated love with usefulness, measuring my worth by what I could provide, rather than who I was. The cardiac event that nearly ended my life had ultimately saved it by forcing me to recognize that pattern and break it. True family support, I had discovered, was reciprocal rather than transactional. It required boundaries as well as commitment, honesty, alongside loyalty. Most importantly, it demanded that all parties recognize each other's humanity, including the right to prioritize personal well-being. I glanced at the framed photo on my bookshelf taken at a recent family gathering. All of us together, faces relaxed and genuine, rather than posed for social media perfection. The caption Adriana had added when sharing it online read simply, "Family. Complicated, imperfect, worth the work." The journey of rebuilding our relationships continued daily, with occasional setbacks and moments of frustration when old patterns threatened to reassert themselves. But the foundation had shifted, built now on mutual respect, rather than obligation and fear. My phone buzzed with a text from Luke, checking if I was available for a non-work dinner that evening. Another change, actual friendships, rather than merely professional connections. As I replied affirmatively, I reflected on how my collapse had ultimately created space for a more balanced, authentic life. Sometimes the most profound lessons come through crisis. In my case, it took a literal broken heart to teach me that true strength lies not in endless sacrifice, but in the courage to stand firmly in your own worth. That loving yourself is not selfish but necessary. That helping others while compromising your own well-being serves no one in the end. I had chosen to help my family without sacrificing myself. By doing so, I had not only saved my health, but potentially broken a generational cycle of dysfunction that might otherwise have continued indefinitely. As I prepare to share this story, I wonder how many of you have faced similar crossroads in your relationships. Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with family? Have you struggled to balance obligations to others with care for yourself? Share your experiences in the comments below. Your story might help someone else find the courage to create healthier patterns in their own relationships. And if this resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe to hear more stories about navigating life's most challenging moments. Remember, sometimes the most loving thing you can do for others is to first honor your own worth. Thank you for listening, and take care of your hearts both literally and figuratively.